just shooting them a text to let them know I'm thinking about them, or putting their birthday in my phone and getting them a card to send in the mail, or just sending a thinking of you card. Just really try and have others at the forefront of my mind, and how can I try and impact their day in a positive way. That really kind of helps me stay in that servant leader mindset and just try and be there for other people.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Reach Your Prime. I'm Jared Barnes, your host and founder of Prime U. We develop talent within organizations and support individuals in their personal and professional pursuits of excellence. Today, we're talking with Amanda Brown. She's the Assistant Director for NU for Life at Northwestern University. Amanda is an active member of Women Leaders in College Sports, serving on the Education and Leadership Committee. By the most recent grads, Amanda struggled to find her direction after graduation. The post-graduation experience is one few are really prepared for, and the formative years afterwards teach us amazing lessons. We're going to dig into those lessons Amanda learned during these formative years so you can use them in your own life and prepare to be a better leader, whatever your work is or will be. Enjoy. Well, we are very excited to host you today on the podcast. I wanted to give just a quick background on you before we dive into our questions of the day. Amanda Brown is currently the Assistant Director of Career Enhancement and Employer Relations at Northwestern University. So shout out to the Big Ten for representing.
Go Cats.
Amanda, yes, go Cats, go Cats. Amanda has a big background in volleyball, where she worked for the AVCA, American Volleyball Coaches Association, and also the University of South Carolina. So go Cox as well. But we are very excited to host you here on the podcast today, where the narrative of our conversation is really going to be around you sharing your story, sharing about lessons you've learned along the way, but most importantly, that advice and insight, the things that nobody really teaches you until you go through it. We want to be able to highlight that and share that with our audience today. So I'll just allow you to jump in real quick. If you want to give a quick background to our audience, you can go ahead.
Great. Thanks. And I really appreciate you having me here today, Jared, and excited for everything that you're doing with Prime U, and happy to be a part of the podcast. But, you kind of touched on my background a little bit. I interned at the American Volleyball Coaches Association in college at Georgetown College. It was about 20 minutes from where I went to school. So it was a great opportunity for me to really get plugged in. And, volleyball, I played volleyball at Georgetown for 2 years. And so to be able to intern at a place like the AVCA and continue to be a part of the game that had meant so much to me was really exciting. But after I graduated in 2008, it was during the peak of the recession. And so jobs were very scarce, and it was a really challenging time for people my age and people that I graduated with. So I remember thinking to myself in the beginning of my senior year, and then halfway through, okay, I want to have a job by the time I graduate, which don't we all?
Yeah.
But, so many of my friends just took jobs to have jobs, or went back to school just to try and work their way through that challenging time. So I moved home, and I was working at Kirkland's home store for a couple months just to have some money while I was searching for a job. And fortunately, my parents let me move back in and, really pushed me to full-time look for a job as well. But a couple months later, the AVCA had a full-time opening, and they reached out and, asked if I was interested, if I was still looking, and encouraged me to apply. And, it all happened pretty fast from there. But then I was starting full-time in August. It was an incredible opportunity to learn from Kathy DeBoer, who is one of my biggest mentors still today. And just to be able to have that type of leader to learn from at 22 years old, I feel really, really fortunate. And to have that type of experience professionally, where I got to learn so many different things. I mean, at a nonprofit like that, there was, I think, maybe 8 or 9 full-time staff. So doing things that we were doing at the capacity that we were with our staff, I mean, it was a total team effort, but I just got to learn so many different things and meet so many different people. So I spent about 4.5 years there, and then really wanted to get on a campus and see what that was like. So I just tapped into my network that I built at the AVCA and found out about the opening at South Carolina. And again, it was in volleyball. I felt continued to be blessed to be a part of a sport that I love so much. And so I took the director of operations position there and moved to Columbia. And I learned so much about campus life there. I thought I wanted to do event operations and game management. And then as I spent my time in Carolina and really, connected with the woman who was in that role specific to volleyball, I learned that maybe that's not what I wanted to do. That I don't know if that's where my passions really lied. I knew my skill sets could do that, but I didn't know if that's what I would really love. But I got to really find out about student athlete development, which at Georgetown, there wasn't that type of position. It was it was a really small school. So I didn't even know that world of student athlete development even existed. So I really got excited about that. And the woman who was in that role at the time, Erica Nelson, who's now at Arkansas, she really took me under her wing and let me just see and do whatever I wanted to do to learn more about it. She took me to the former NCAA Life Skills Symposium so I could meet people there and just learn more about the world of student athlete development, which was really fantastic. And so also during that time, I completed my MBA with a sport management concentration through Tiffin University in Ohio, which was a dream for me. I'd always wanted to go back and get my master's, but it was just trying to figure out the right timing for that, which I feel like there's never a good time, right? But fortunately, my boss, my head coach at South Carolina, really supported me in that and allowed me to have flexibility to do that program while still being 100% committed to my role as the director of operations. So once I completed that, I knew then I was going to be ready to take the next step and move on. And then that's when the opportunity at Northwestern came available. And this place is really special. One of the reasons I really love it is that going to a small school myself, I really love that environment, that family feel, but you still are in the Big Ten and arguably the best conference in the nation. So it was a perfect fit for my personality, for my skill sets, and for my passion and interests.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it just, through listening to you, you've done an incredible job of compiling experiences along with compiling a network. Which two things, as a career development professional are just critical to advancing in this world. And, now getting a chance to be at a place like Northwestern I would have to agree with you. I might be biased that the Big Ten is the best conference. I'm a graduate of a Big Ten school. So that Big Ten has a special place in my heart, but just your journey, how you've been able to piece that together go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think for me, the biggest thing is being intentional and being being curious, and
that's it.
Asking questions and getting people, kind of on your side that are willing to teach and learn and expose you to things, and then just being intentional with each move. So I don't know if I was 100% thinking intentionality when I was making the move from AVCA to South Carolina and getting on a campus. But then I got really involved with women leaders in college sports. And that's one of the really big lessons that they teach is being intentional with your conversations, with your relationships, with your moves. And so that has really resonated with me and really kind of been a core principle for me is just to really be intentional with everything I do.
That's a great point. And you mentioned the creativity and almost this subtle impatience, or maybe a better word would be urgency, which is, I think, another thing that I've seen as a gap in just students when it comes to career planning. So what has fostered or really built up that sense of urgency around being intentional with the network you've mentioned?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I just always want to find ways to better myself. So whether that was through grad school or, getting involved with women leaders or whatever the case may be, I always try to find a way to set goals for myself outside of work. And, it kind of touches on a question we had talked about avoiding burnout is just whether that is, joining different committees at the school that you're at, or, getting involved with women leaders, or, in South Carolina, I got really plugged in with my sorority alumni chapter and helping build that in Columbia, or working out. I mean, just trying to set goals for myself outside of work and just, always trying to strive for something. In my early 20s, I was doing a million things and
Yep.
I could do it at that time. Now I have to really kind of step back and prioritize. Okay, I can't be playing in a volleyball league at 11 o'clock at night. Like I just
Yep.
I can't
Yeah.
do that anymore, but like, what are some other ways that I can push and challenge myself to just make myself better holistically, but that are going to make me just a more well-rounded person as I move on in my career.
I love it. I love it. And so how have you balanced that ambition with now playing a role on a team where you're part of a
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
on your at Northwestern, excuse me. How have you balanced that managing your just ambitions and your responsibilities as a team member?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to make sure that your personal goals align with the team goals that you're a part of.
Absolutely.
I think that if those are not lock in step, it's going to present some really big challenges, So while I was at South Carolina, when I asked my head coach if he would be okay with that, I built up that trust and equity with
Right.
him where he
Right.
knew that I would be 100% committed to what I was doing there, that I wanted to do bigger and better things as well, and that this degree would be important to do that. So, I knew that by pursuing that degree, it was going to help me be better at my role. And it was also going to help me be a better teammate. So I think when you work to better yourself, if done correctly, it can make you a better employee and teammate. So that's kind of how those goals can align.
That's huge. That's huge. And you mentioned the trust and equity you built up with your head coach. What does that look like? How could somebody build that trust and equity with their supervisor or boss or whatever it may be?
I'm very much a honest communicator. I like to communicate that way, and then also to be communicated with in that way. So, when I was interviewing here at Northwestern, that was one of the questions that was really important for me to ask was, what's your communication style? Do you shoot it from the hip? Or are you, is it kind of in the moment feedback or at the end? Because for me personally, that's how I've been successful building trust and building those relationships with the people I work with, is just being able to establish that open lines of communications from the start. And it was with good intention, right? It's not meant to be malicious. It's not meant to be condescending, but it's just meant to help me out, help you out, and help the greater good out.
That's great. That's great. And you shared your journey. You shared how you've gotten to this point. And even different pieces of your journey that you might not always put out there, and having to move back in with your parents and take a job just to make ends meet in the meantime. But despite all of your accomplishments and where you're at today, what's one area you may have failed or come up short, and what has been the biggest thing you've taken away from that?
When I was thinking about that question, I would say it's not a particular trait, but it was an instance that really kind of helped ground me and humble me. When I was at the AVCA, I had interviewed for a job that I really wanted. I thought I had nailed the interview, both phone and in person. I had all the right connections. I mean, to me, I was a no-brainer. And then I came in second for it and was completely crushed. And so I think during that process, because I felt so confident about how I was doing in the interview process, that I had kind of mentally moved on, which was not fair to my current employer. And so getting that rejection, which, is obviously bound to happen in life, and it happened many times after that, but it taught me to always be present and just to stay plugged in 100% to my current role, no matter what. I think that has a lot of threads of loyalty as well. But it just really kind of rocked me a little bit of, this isn't like, yes, I'm really disappointed, but this is not fair that I had kind of mentally checked out and was ready to start doing these new responsibilities of a job that I hadn't even been offered yet. And so I'm glad I learned that early on, because then the next year, the right opportunity came along and it was fantastic. But I think it was a reminder for me to always have 2 feet on the floor, to have 2 feet on the floor until that new right door opens up, and then you can take that leap. But to be 100% committed to where you're at, because you just never know when that next step is going to come, and you don't want to burn bridges and just be 100% in where you're at.
That's it. That's it. And something my one of my coaches that I played for, he used to always say, "Win where your feet are."
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this day and age where we're consistently thinking about the next thing or the next opportunity, just due to the way things are presented to us, or the pressure we feel from watching others or LinkedIn or social media, or how am I coming off, or where am I at my career trajectory, and looking at others, and do I match up with them? And that, I think, the value of being present, the value of focusing on what's right in front of you, can be very hard at times, especially when you feel like you're not where you need to be. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but I do want to hit it again and kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. In this pursuit of, quote unquote, being where you want to be, or, achieving your goals, what other things have you done to protect yourself from feeling burnt out, or from feeling of, man, what am I really doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think taking time to invest in yourself is really important. In today's landscape, self-care is a really popular topic to talk about, but I really believe in the value of it. And it doesn't have to be, a 7-day Mediterranean cruise that you do for yourself. I mean, that's awesome, right? But it can be as simple as just getting up in the morning and doing some mindful meditation, or going for a walk. For me, sometimes I like to go and get like a manicure and pedicure because it just chills me out, and I just do something for myself. And, I think in college athletics, the great thing about what we do is we get to serve so many people, but sometimes we forget to serve ourselves. And so I think it's just really important for us just to step back, and whether that's once a week or once a day, whatever you feel like is needed for you, just to step back and take care of yourself.
That's it. That's it. And I think that is definitely a lost art too, where there's the constant need to do something, or, I need to add value. And that's almost how we're wired as employees within collegiate athletics is, I need to produce. And so something, obviously you are a quote unquote career coach with your student athletes at Northwestern. At a place like Northwestern, where there is a lot of academic pressure, or expectations to be successful off the field, what is one thing you have told your students to really help them balance all of the demands, both with their time, but also with their expectations in their lives?
I think what I really encourage our student athletes to remember is to put blinders on themselves, because I think they're so busy. And this could be applicable to students anywhere, but just looking around, seeing what everybody else is doing, what internships they're getting, and what they may not be doing. And, a lot of times it might be, well, my classmates are doing this, but they're not student athletes, and look what you're doing, know? So I really try and encourage them just to kind of put the blinders on and focus on what they're doing. And they can't control what everybody else is doing. They can only control themselves. And so you have the power to really shape and influence what your future is going to look like. Your classmate or even teammate next to you, they don't. Like, you have the power to carve your path. And so, as easy as it is via social media and all the ways to be distracted, just really try and focus on you and what you can do to prepare yourself for what your future is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said a word there that really resonated with me, and it's control. And I think the more I've lived, I realize now the less control I have over different factors, where, growing up, especially as a student athlete, whether you're in the high school space or even collegiate student athlete, you're almost wired or trained to control, want to control your diet, your practice schedule, your class schedule, your playing time, all these different things. And then you get out into the real world and you realize, well, you're part of something greater than that. So that's, I think, a great point, and definitely insight on, hey, let's focus on what you can control. And so when it comes to for you personally, on things you can't control, what has been one keystone habit, or, a habit that really sets you up for success, or a go-to practice that you try to do daily or weekly to really set yourself up to be the best you can be at your job?
Yeah, I have two. One is I talk to one or both of my parents pretty much every day. I'm an only child, and so I'm super close with my parents, and the foundation of work ethic that they set in front of me all growing up and to this day has been something that I'll always be appreciative of. And so they just keep me grounded. They're fun. They're curious. They want to know what we're doing, what's going on at Northwestern. And, they're just as excited and passionate about what I'm doing in and out of work. So talking to them really is an integral part of my day. But then I really I've learned a lot from having servant leader bosses throughout my career.
Okay.
And so that's something I really try and emulate. So whether it was Kathy or Dr. Phillips here at Northwestern, and even my direct supervisor, Julie Hammer, they all have been really outstanding servant leaders. So I really try and implement, that type of mentality in everything I do. But every day I really try and think of one person that I can maybe try and encourage. So whether that's just shooting them a text to let them know I'm thinking about them, or putting their birthday in my phone and getting them a card to send in the mail, or just sending a thinking of you card, just really try and have others at the forefront of my mind. And how can I try and impact their day in a positive way? That really kind of helps me stay in that servant leader mindset and just try and be there for other people. And, and it continues to just tap into my network and just let people know I'm thinking of them and I'm here for them and will support them, because I know that they would do the same for me.
Yeah. That's outstanding. That's outstanding. And I think the whole premise of what you're talking about, whether it's connecting with your parents or encouraging others or really living out the principles that have been taught to you, it's about a purpose greater than you, which is very encouraging. And I think something that, again, back to that control piece, when you let go of things you can't control, I think you can start to see the world in a way that is bigger than just you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally. And that has not been easy for me. I am very much I'm very much like a super organized, super attention to detail. And as a result, like mild control freak. And so that has been a huge growth area for me, as just learning like, okay, I just have to let go of some of these things and they're going to work itself out and it's going to be okay. But I can't, like, what I'm trying to do is not going to help this situation. And just kind of just letting go of the reins of that has been something that I struggle with, but that I really try and like think bigger picture of like, okay, Amanda, you need to relax and just know that this is going to work out. Like everything's going to work out. And you, again, like you control what you can control and not try and worry about all these other moving pieces. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. And so I think to conclude, to kind of put just a big bow on everything we talked about today, we really try to have a word of the week and what we do with Prime U. And our word of the week this week is influence, and particularly the cycle of influence. And it's interesting how you mentioned your two mentors, Kathy DeBoer and Erica Nelson, and just how you wanted to live out your leadership style of servant leadership as the way they portrayed and influenced you. And so, I think that's great what you're doing, particularly at Northwestern, with career coaching, with your NU for Life program of really mentoring student athletes, promoting opportunities outside of sport. I think that's outstanding. But when it comes to that influence, when it comes to that day-to-day engagement, when it comes to those just real life conversations that have nothing to do with a potential internship, nothing to do with the game or match coming up that week, when it just comes to just personal conversations and speaking into somebody's life, and you think about this cycle of influence, what does the word influence really mean to you? And how have you lived that out?
It's a great question. I think influence to me means investing, because I don't think you can have an influence without investing in people. And so I think, thinking about my relationships with my student athletes here and even the ones from South Carolina, I tried to really show up for them, whether that was at their practice or at their game or at a lip sync battle or, something not related to their sport, just to show them that I really care and I'm really invested in them as a person, as well as a student athlete and future employer. But I think that you can't influence without being invested. So that's really important to me. And, I think that's really important to be successful in a role like this, is that in college athletics, we have such an incredible opportunity to influence the lives of student athletes. But if you're not genuine and you're not, fully bought into them as a person, it's not gonna have the same type of impact as it could.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing that. I think
Thank
you and
you.
I had discussed, Amanda, you definitely want to make yourself available to other student athletes or young professionals in the space who would just
For
love to
sure.
connect with you. So for those of you listening, feel free to reach out to Amanda. Her contact information will be available in the description. Amanda, last question. If you were to write a letter to yourself when you were 21, 22 years old, just graduated college, trying to figure it out, hustling for opportunity, knowing what you know now, what would you say to that 21 or 22-year-old version of yourself?
Wow. I would say that you're going to be very blessed to be in a world where you are excited to come to work every day, and your ability to influence others and to share your story with others and be a part of theirs. And that it's going to take you all over, and just to be open to that and just be excited for the people that you're going to meet and the lives that you're going to impact.
That's great. That's great. Well, again, thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing. We really appreciate your
thanks,
time.
Jared.
And definitely looking forward to learning more about your journey as you continue to grow at Northwestern, and just excited for the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today and, hopefully help influence at least one person.
That's all it takes. All it takes is one. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. Just to recap, here's the lesson to remember. Implement the mentality of the servant leader. You get significance by giving significance, and you can't give too much away. Be present and look to serve first. Investing in people will give you the greatest return. Check out Amanda on Twitter at Amanda L. Brown 8, the number 8. Please share this podcast and visit us at primeu.org. Send me an email too at info@primeu.org. That's info@prime, the letter u.org. We just released our brand new ebook called Influence Without Authority. Please be sure to check that out. And remember, it's not enough to know. We must apply. Take the lessons you're learning and start using them now.